So thank you for being here. This is going to be interactive, and so sorry about that. But that's okay. We should have some fun. There are a lot of slides. They are posted. Do not worry. Just kind of come along on the ride with me, okay? So we're going to go through a couple of these things. Introductions. Who am I? Who are you? The basics of UX, the daily grind, how to get there from here, and final questions. So hi, I'm Robin. I am as the lovely introduction stated, I'm a UX designer at Penn State University. I work in the studio in the teaching and learning with technology area of Penn State IT. I have been there for about 5 years as a user experience person, and you know, I kind of fell into it right at the right time because, in all honesty, 10 years ago, there were no UX designers. We had no idea what that was. We were doing it, but we didn't really know why we were doing that. And there's not a real clear path of how to be a UX designer. So I'm curious now who we have here. So my question is, anybody who needs, why are you here? What do you want? Developers. Do I have developers? Cool. Designers? Cool. Yeah, you know what? That whole, yeah, I'm a little bit this and a little bit that, I think that that's really inherent in our jobs, right? And in higher ed, it's bad enough if we're in IT and we're sort of in web stuff, right? But then a lot of times we're an army of one, or we're at least wearing a couple of hats, if not more. Anybody else? Marketers, comm people. Who did I miss? Some of you haven't raised your hands. Yeah.
Well, oddly, I'm a business analyst, but I lead our experience group, which includes user research, design.
I love that. I love that a lot. So he is in business analysis, and he goes to that end where we're talking about research, and we're talking about, again, why it's important from a business point of view to actually pay attention to UX. Somebody else had their hand. Sir.
I'm, I guess, the only faculty member here. Actually, now, okay, good.
Ruh-roh.
I'm not alone. Yeah, and I'm actually here for this one.
So I'm interested, do you have an interest in UX?
Me?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Well, you specifically, sir, because you raised your hand. I'm sorry to tell you. That's how that works.
All right. I mean, a couple of reasons. I can learn, I can still learn a lot here. So I've done quite a bit of WP. I haven't done much UX. My best friend from college and post-college is a UX guru, and I don't know what the heck he does. So maybe I'll understand what he does.
Oh, I doubt it. And can I ask what department you're in?
So I'm the director of the Environmental Studies program. I launched a WordPress multi-site here.
Okay.
Give my students opportunities to pursue digital scholarship. It fell through. There was some zero institutional support after a couple of years. We're still doing it, and we're still trying to keep some kind of flame burning. Outside of a more controlled multi-site environment, it's a little harder.
Yeah.
So we're kind of regrouping. My staff person here is a willing proto-geek. She's not right here in this session. She's in the other one.
Divide and conquer. I understand.
Yeah.
We do that too.
I mean, you're great, and WPCampus has been one of the greatest conferences I've attended.
It's really awesome. I'm sure that they appreciate you saying that, so that it was sent out among the wires and the waves and the air and the stuff in the netherworld. Good. That's fabulous. We really have quite an array here. How many of you are feeling have been asked about incorporating more UX into your jobs, so that it's actually coming from your director or your manager? Or is this something that you think will be helpful, or you just don't know and you're curious? Curious? Cool. All right. I appreciate you playing 20 questions with me. It helps to know what we're talking about to make sure that this is more useful for you, because I'm still going through it. So let's start with the basics. This is what we're going to do over the 40 minutes that we have is we're going to talk about, very briefly, what is UX? What are some of the things that a UX designer has to do, is expected to do, may be expected to do, because it's such a broad umbrella that it can be difficult to actually nail down specific job descriptions. It's that whole other duties as assigned, right? And so because there's not a direct path into UX, we don't have specific job duties, and we're also only starting to see courses and options and abilities to actually learn more about UX in a structured manner. So I have had people who are really interested in the concept of user experience, but they haven't been really sure how to get there. And so that's some of the stuff that we're going to talk about. I've got a whole bunch of resources for you that are embedded in this so that you'll be able to jump in and see where you land, okay? So let's talk about fundamentals first. In the simplest terms, UX design is about making the user's experience with the product the best that it could be. So user experience, it encompasses everything. Everything from the what am I saying here? Company, its services, its products. Andy Budd is a designer at Clear Left in Brighton, I believe, in UK. He has this beautiful, beautiful talk about the user experience of making a reservation at a hotel. That's not online. I mean, making a reservation, calling on the phone, finding the phone number, calling on the phone, having interactions with people, reserving a room. When the time comes and he actually makes it to the hotel, is he welcomed by the front desk? Is he, does it go without a problem? Or do they perhaps, have they lost his room? That becomes a less positive user experience, right? And then they say, I'm sorry, sir, I'm so sorry for our error. We're going to upgrade you to a suite. Then that experience goes up. And at the end of the time, even to the chocolate mint on the pillow, everything that particular traveler has experienced about the company, the hotel, the size of his or her room, all of that is his user experience. The user experience design is actually about how to create that, okay? That's what we're worried about. So if visual design is about how to make something, how to focus and design on how something looks, then user experience design is about designing how it feels. How does that user feel when they're interacting with your product, interacting with your app, interacting with the card trying to unlock his hotel room and the magnetic strip is not working? It's all about the design. So how does that feel? Don Norman actually is the gentleman given credit for coining the term user experience design. He is a very interesting gentleman. He's currently director of the design lab at UCSD, but he has had quite a life. He's also I believe, a cognitive psychologist, and he is a designer as well. And he is the author of the book, The Design of Everyday Things. And his focus, it was shattering because the design of everyday things, it started the prioritization of usability and function over aesthetics. That's completely different than how we used to design things, right? We used to design and say, oh, this looks nice, I like it. I like it that the handle has that extra sort of curl and that flare. I think that that's cool. Great. Well, you know what? It makes it harder to grab that handle. So that's not necessarily the best idea in terms of design, in terms of usability. So Don Norman was, again, it sort of reshifted how people looked at design and how people talked about using things, and didn't make it easier. So he says, I invented the term because I thought human interface and usability were too narrow. I wanted to cover all aspects of the person's experience within the system, including industrial design, graphics, the interface, the physical interaction, and the manual. So it's everything, right? It's not just what your website looks like. It's walking through a door. It's anything that a user has an experience with. And by the way, we really should not be calling it users. We should be calling them humans. Because humans are people, humans are messy. Humans screw up. Humans do dumb things. Humans make assumptions. All of these things that are particularly human and can throw a wrench into regular design. So let's get back to this. User interface. User interface design is the wrong definition on that slide. Well, that's embarrassing. So when we're talking about the user interface are the pieces that you make a choice of putting on your screen. So do I do a radio button or do I do a toggle switch? Which makes more sense in this functionality? Do I do a pull down or do I fill in text field? What makes the most sense for the information that we're requiring from the user or what the user wants to do? So if the user experience design is about how the product feels, how I feel when I'm using it, then the user interaction design is about, or interface design is about designing how the product is laid out. All right, it's the actual structure, it's the actual pieces that you're putting together in order to make that a real thing. And really, at the end of the day, why do we care about any of this? I mean, everybody has an opinion. Why do we care about this? Any thoughts? Bueller? Yes, ma'am.
Well, because products that are easier to use are going to be more likely to be used and going to help define the success of the product.
Did you say money? I think I heard you say money. Yeah. Ding, 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 ding. Yes, ma'am. Not just money, but let's be honest about it. Do you have something that you love to use? And you may not even know why, but I'll tell you one. I have a Capital One card, and I use their app. Now, that sounds stupid. Who cares? Here's the thing about that. They send me a real quick email every time something happens, and maybe because I'm a generous tipper, and they're like, hey, we saw that you ate here. Glad you had a good time, but we see the tip is a little high. If it was because you had extremely great service, that's great. Thank you so much. We're fine. However, if it's not, click here so that we can actually investigate this. It shows me, it makes it very, very easy for me to schedule payments, to make sure that I don't miss a payment, to make sure that I see how much is left. And it allows me to get in and out of that application really easily. Get what I need to get done, completed, and back out and on my way. That to me is a sign of a good product for me to use. So when we focus on UX, the reason that we care is because that means that we can design to focus on the user, right? Again, so that we don't have the dippy little handle that is uncomfortable to hold just because you think it looks nice. we focus on the user. Alan Cooper is a gentleman in the field, in the industry. He says, humans have always been emotional and have always reacted to the artifacts in their world emotionally. Now, I want to ask you something. How do you feel about this slide? Any sort of feeling about it? It's red. Red has a tendency to engage a little bit of emotion. You may not realize that, but I'm pretty sure that you noticed when it changed to a red color. Subconsciously, that's a piece of design that allows for the user experience to be changed. So, okay, fine. What can we do? What is it that we do on a daily basis? I'm here to tell you that I do just about everything, and including the kitchen sink, right? I mean, yes, it's because I'm in a higher ed, but it's because when you're talking about development, when you're talking about, and we do application development, when you're talking about development, we are working in a team, and we tend to overlap, and our skills sort of overlap with each other, right? So I'm usually working with at least one developer, and I am usually working with a visual designer. I'm really fortunate. That's the best of all scenarios for me, because that means that I can work with the visual designer on the look and feel, but I can let him take the lead on that because he's so much better at it than I am. I can talk to the developer about the interface and about the UI, but I can let him take the lead because he has that knowledge. Meanwhile, the UX person, the user experience designer, sort of acts as the glue, right? Sort of keeps everything all together as it moves through the system, and we all keep talking to each other. So that's a great thing. Sometimes I'm not that fortunate. Sometimes my visual designer has about 6 trillion other things to do. Let me just tell you, I can do visual design, but I'm no Nick, and it shows, right? But we overlap, and that's frequently the case. And so depending on who's on the team on a particular product, that changes what I have to be responsible for, right? So these are some of the things that a UX designer might work on. You might do user research, right? Trying to understand what the problem is. You might have to do user personas, trying to understand from your research who are the types of people that are using your product, your application. I might have to craft user stories that help tell the story of why that person is there, what they are looking for, what they need to accomplish while they're using the product. I frequently, no matter what, end up doing wireframes, although I'll be honest with you, I'm really old school. I don't want to mess around with I don't want to put additional work into an application. I just use pencil and paper, right? Because I can sketch it out, and I can take that to somebody, and I can say, hey, on this screen, how would you get to loaner books for this library interface? It doesn't have to be beautiful, it doesn't have to be pretty, but I sketched something out, and they can just point at it and they can say, well, I think it would be over here in book returns. And I'm like, no, that's totally the wrong thing, right? But it's not the wrong thing. That's just because I was looking at it that way. I'm not the user. I have baggage. We need to talk to our users. We need to do the research. A lot of times that falls on the UX person. And a lot of times, I don't get that opportunity and I have to fight for it. So I do wireframes. Sometimes you do prototypes. Prototypes are simply the next step that you try to make a working mock-up of what you've done, right? So it may be a paper prototype if you're talking about a website and you've cut out blocks of text, blocks for images. You have put in the buttons. You've cut out the paper buttons for the call to actions. That's a paper prototype, right? It is the ability to actually work something, sort of walk it through and see if it makes sense. And if it doesn't, it's really easy to change, as opposed to having to go back in after somebody's tried to code this and say, okay, we've got to rip this apart and start again because it's not working. Again, user testing. This is super iterative and it's super important. Sometimes I'm responsible for visual design, and I can do it. I'm a generalist, and so I do a little bit of everything. But I don't have the depth of skill that my visual designer does. I have to work with user interface. Oftentimes we have to do the information architecture, so a lot of times we'll do card sorting, trying to understand what's the best way, not the way that I think that it should be put together, but what's the best way that the people who are going to be using this site can do that. I'm always an accessibility person. I think that that's really important, and just is the thing usable. So when you start talking about, you've got this bucket of things that I might have to do as a UX designer. You want to know what the employers want, right? I mean, let's cut to the chase. I want to get into a field, or I want to make sure I get bumped up with promotion at work. So what does my boss want? Unicorns! I have never in my life, other than the combination of unicorns and pooping rainbows, I have never ever heard unicorns attached to any other topic except UX. And I'm like, what is this? So have you ever read those ridiculous job descriptions? I want a rock star. I want you to be able to, I want you to stay awake nights because you're hungry. You want to get this done. You want to do the best things you possibly can. I'm like, dude, people have lives, right? This is important, but, we're not really solving world hunger here. What else do they want? They want more unicorns. And by the way, just in case you didn't know that, they can't even decide on what the unicorns are made of. So this one is made of prototype code, usability, information architecture, interaction design, content strategy. I didn't even tell you about that because I thought, well, that's just kind of throwing a bomb in the bucket, and I didn't want to do that. User research, visual design, right? This one's even worse. This is empathy and finesse and execution and collaboration and philosophy and experimentation and psychology, where the butt is, exploration, finesse, creativity, evidence. Holy cow! It's like everything except the kitchen sink, right? So my point to this is that people just want everything. When they say, well, what do you want this person to do? Well, I want them to do all the things because this is new and it's great, and I'm really excited about this. Pro tip, there are no UX unicorns. It doesn't happen that way. And oftentimes, the way that you get all of those skills or more of those skills covered is when you have a UX designer who's working in a team. If you're working by yourself, man, you're staying at work way too late at night, trying to get everything done. And I think you guys are probably already doing that some anyway, because we are higher ed, right? We're expected to do more with less. And now we're expected to add in UX, user experience, which is viable, which is really important. But it's like, something's got to give. So, okay, fine. So seriously, give me 5 things that they want. If I was, say, a junior designer trying to get my first UX slot, right? Maybe I'm pivoting. Maybe I'm like, and actually it did happen to me. I did pivot. I was a technologist, And I have always been the person who, I like to say it's because I'm really lazy. And I'd rather put more effort into something the first time to make sure that it works, so then we can just repeat it over and over again, right? Because I don't want to have to do the same thing repeatedly, because that's wasted effort. And so I started doing those types of things in the office, in my work environment. And when UX actually became a thing, it really spoke to me. It wasn't that I was suddenly a UX person overnight, but they were things that I had actually been paying attention to. So what are hiring managers looking for? Well, they're looking for communication skills. Can you actually communicate a viable vision, not only from beginning to end, but can you communicate with different types of people? Can you communicate with your developers? And then can you work with and speak to your communicators and your marketing people? And can you talk about design? And can you talk about why this is important in terms of an ROI in the business plan? These are things that are important. And as the UX person, they kind of fall into your lap, because you have a tendency to have to fight for what you believe in. This is the squishy stuff, right? And there are times that when I do this, I get a little frustrated, because, the developers do a thing and it goes right to deployment, right? And my visual designer, who is brilliant, does a thing, and everybody's like, oh, wow, that makes it so much better. That's exactly what we needed. But I never hear that. And the reason that I don't hear that is because you really don't recognize UX until it's bad. If you have a bad user experience, if you have a product that is just kind of crappy, or have you ever tried to use something and you're always hitting the wrong button, and you keep doing it? That's because the interface does not make sense to you. It's a bad design. And that means that you have to take extra time to actually learn the wrong way to use that so that it will work for you. That's kind of bananas. All right, so communication, learning and challenges. I think that UX designers, anybody that's in user experience, has to be willing to understand that they don't know all the things, right? Because we're designing for other people, not for us, not for anybody on the team. We're designing for humans that we haven't met. So don't you think that it would be a really good idea if we actually met the humans that we were designing for? It's kind of like making a chocolate cake, only to discover that the people that you're making it for are allergic to chocolate. It's like they like cake, yeah, and it's their birthday, so cool, they want cake, but it's chocolate, so it's not going to do the job for them. Do you have initiative? If something's wrong, can you think about moving forward and doing something else and thinking that whole outside the box thing? Can you step outside of your standard responses and try something new? Will you look it up? Will you do your own research? That's the kind of thing that a UX person needs to do, because a UX person needs to be able to find the different changes. Wow. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to have to put a portfolio together. I have been officially a UX designer for 5 years. Much like the cobbler's children, my shoes are about a third of the way done. So it happens, right? Because we're busy at work. So let's talk. Can you communicate? We've already done this. Can you communicate effectively? Will you learn from? Will you challenge your team? Because really, you are sort of the glue that puts things together. Do you take initiative to learn? Are you talented or are you creative? And does your portfolio show your potential? I don't know. I guess I'm just going to have to keep doing something. So, great. We know what we want to do. I went too far. And we know what we want to do. We know where we want to go. How am I going to get there? Here you go. Hang on, because we have 14 minutes. Getting there from here. First thing you need to do, read and research. It's part of that curiosity, and it's part of that creativity. You need to be out there reading. Some of the best books that I can tell you that I go to every single time, because I buy my own books, because I don't want anybody else to take them. Rosenfeld Media is fantastic. They get you. And there are some amazing books there, depending, no matter what facet of user experience you're focused on, whether you're focused on research, whether you're focused on being like a UX team of one, whether you're focused on interaction design, they have a lot of work there for you. The other one, of course, is A Book Apart. They are short, quick books, which are brilliant. And they are really easy go-tos. The only other thing that I would say, which sort of falls a little bit more to usability, is Steve Krug. Don't Make Me Think is one of the best, easiest things to accomplish. And I will also tell you that if I've taken nothing else away from Steve, and he's lovely, if you guys all tweet, I'll get a DM from him that says, okay, you're talking me up again, aren't you? And I'll be like, yeah, I am. The thing that he tells you to do is he says, take a morning a month. One morning. That's 4 hours. That's 4 hours in 4 weeks, right? And sit down and do something. Just something. Take a look at your site. It doesn't have to be anything big. Something that's low-hanging. Maybe you want to address, maybe you want to try cart sorting your IA. If you think that the information architecture is off, people are complaining that they can't find something. Maybe you want to actually look at that. If you don't do anything, or if nothing comes out of that in terms of an actual change, you won't be any farther away from it, but you will have actually put work into it. And that's important. So I really love Steve Krug. Don't Make Me Think, and Rocket Surgery, right? It's not rocket surgery. So read and research. I can't emphasize that enough, right? Know what user experience design is. Understand what the difference is between UX and UI design. It's easy to make a mistake. I do it half the time. Understand also why UX is important in business. I guarantee that if you understand that in the workplace and you incorporate that into your design and your work, it will be noticed, because who likes to spend money and who likes to save money, they are your people up the ranks. Get to know the UX workflow. It's not hard, right? It is build the empathy for the target user, carry out polls and surveys, create problem statements. So we're trying to figure out what is the user problem. Once you finish that, then think about what a solution is. How can we solve this? What do? Sketch ideas, right? Maybe something's going to work. Maybe you say, okay, I like that. Let's actually do a wireframe now. Take it, okay, you work on that, go through a couple of iterations. Okay, now I want to actually do a prototype, because I think this is actually pretty good, right? That gives you your own process to sort of work through a lot of kinks. Then what you really need to do is test your design. And oftentimes you go back and forth, right? Oftentimes you have to do one of one, one of the other one, one of one, one of the other one. So conduct user testing. Use the feedback to go back and fix and update your design. Conduct more user testing. It's like lather, rinse, repeat. It's not anything special. But what happens is you're talking to the people who are using your product. Develop and execute. You want to, when you finally get to that point, you want to finalize your wireframe. You want to finalize the UI design, right? And then again, it is your job to hand off that package to your developer, because it successfully made it through design. It goes to development. And yes, sometimes it comes back around because you need to test it. So play with the tools of the trade. We got a lot of them. So, you know, common UX tools, we are involving with user research and wireframing and prototyping. We personally use Sketch, which is really super popular, and it's an awful lot easier than the Adobe suite, at least for me. I just don't, remember, I'm not the visual designer, and I don't have the patience to learn that suite. But Sketch allows me to get things done effectively and move on and get my job done without having to work and hit that learning curve. But there are also additional tools as a UX person that you're going to need to be aware of. Anybody use project management work? We use Asana, all right, and we like it a lot. And it's the one thing that I think everybody in the team can actually understand now. We use Slack and Zoom constantly because we've got a lot of remote people. And whiteboards, penultimate, mock-ups. This is what our Asana board looks like. And you can see it goes, here's the backlog, it goes to current iteration. When somebody decides to work on something, they pull it out of here, they put it in progress to show that they're working on it. When it's done, it goes to review so that I have a chance to look at it and test it. Then it goes to stakeholder acceptance. And once we get an okay on the stakeholder acceptance, it can then get ready for deployment, and then it's done and completed when it's actually deployed. Take a course. Learn by doing. And let me just tell you, there are a lot of them out there now because everybody is talking about, you know, those UX unicorns that are just so common these days. Boot camps, workshops, design courses. This is actually interaction design, and they have great information, great classes, and that is a great thing to be putting on your resume if that's where you want to go. Get inspired. It's the creativity. Remember, go Google, go and look at different portfolios, check out portfolios, check out sites. That must be time. Oh no, okay. Keep a bookmark file for reference. Find things that you like, that you think that works. Collect. Build your portfolio. I know, I need to eat my own dog food. It's really important. When you actually build it, there are a lot of places that you can actually say, well, I don't do UX. How can I do that? You know, you can do everything from volunteering for nonprofits to even just choosing a project, create your own project and say, how would I do this? Let's try. You may not put it on your site, but it gives you a chance to walk through the process. Pro tip, don't forget to include examples of all parts of the workflow, right? So even though you might have messy sketches, which I do, I put those on there because you can see my progress. You can see that I actually know what I'm talking about as it moves through the system, so that when a potential employer looks at that, they know that I do prototyping, and I do wireframing, and I do, you know? Network. You are with a great community right now. Take advantage of that. When you go out tonight, take advantage of talking to people and making connections and seeing who can, who has ideas and can inspire you. That's really important. And this is a great community. Additionally, High Ed Web, the High Ed Web Association is a very, very strong association. It's perfect because it's higher ed. So those people get your pain. And that's super important. So all the different ways you can network. There are lots of different things. I have here online design communities that you can look at here. And again, in one of them, it shows you all the discussions. How do you display videos on mobile? What's the difference between user experience and usability? What do you do if neither of the design options are successful? UX for dashboards. I got to do that one. Slack. If you're not doing Slack, that sounds weird, doesn't it? I'm sorry. But Still the same thing. If you aren't on Slack, get on Slack. There are some UX groups that are brilliant for ideas. Somebody is asking for information, and somebody will, like at least 3 people will jump in with options and ideas, and it's a brilliant place for the information to just sort of pop and inspire you. And you know, I lurk because I don't have enough time to necessarily get involved, but it is inspiring to be in there and listening and see what other people are doing. Oh my gosh, holy cow, are we done yet? Thank you, sweet Jesus. We are, unless you have questions. You have about time for 2. Anyone, sir?
You talked about meeting your user. I was curious how that works.
I'm sorry?
You talked about meeting the people who are using our products. How do you do that on your campus,
So-
or how do you recruit?
Students and pizza. And that's not actually a flip answer. I go on coffee dates. We work right across the street from Starbucks. And I have friends that I'm surprised that they even say yes to go to coffee. Because I'm like, hey, I've got this thing, and since you're here, let me ask you a couple of questions about it. My feeling on all of this is that life is hard. There are many things that we should be doing. And not everything has to be a major rollout. If you get 5 people to get feedback on a thing, you've actually got a pretty good number. So you get a pretty decent sense right there of this is either the right direction to go in or holy cow, I better start over. Okay? If it's a bigger project, if it's something that we had actually gone through and there's actually not even a prototype, but a working proof of concept, sometimes that requires a little bit more. Like I said, sometimes pizza. You have to basically do this a lot, is talk and talk and talk, but you also have to listen to them. Students are great, and if you can manage it, your friends. Because honestly, some of our stuff isn't just for our students. Sir?
So related to this question,
Yeah.
how do you then advocate for these people in the face of institutional inertia and politics?
Oh my God, I was really hoping I was going to make it all the way through this talk without somebody saying that.
That's what I'm here
Okay, I'll be very honest and actually not get myself in trouble because it's not a horrible thing. But here's the deal. I would be lying to you if I said that my job was a cakewalk. And I would be lying to you if I said that everybody went, oh, Robin, that's brilliant. I can't believe you did that. I never hear that. Like I said, I've worked on our most recent product since I started designing it. I designed it in November of 2017, and we are still working on it. I don't mean that it died. I mean, we're still adding modules to it. But I have to fight when I see that a developer has gone or somebody has done something and it's like, no, that doesn't work for the user. I have to fight when I say, you know what, I designed this part. It's my fault, mea culpa, but this doesn't work. I threw the monkey out. I'm sorry, let's go back and let's fix this. I'm really fortunate that I get so much support from my developers and from my designers and from my manager, because I almost said to you, I do a lot of fighting. And it's not that I'm doing fighting, but I'm very passionate about my job. And nobody else is going to stand up for the user. That's my job, right? So if you don't want to do that, if that makes you uncomfortable, then do not go into user experience, because humans are messy. They are messy, messy humans. and they don't do the things that you want them to do. Damn it. But if you listen and if you talk to them, suddenly it's like, holy cow, that's gold. I never looked at it that way, right? If you ask questions to try and get at why they did something the way they did, it can completely change the way you see your work. And it's like, oh, I totally missed that. This is so much better this way. So you have to be willing to fight, okay? And yeah, you're right. We are higher ed. Sometimes we take a little longer. We're not the fail fast, fail often, get up and jump and do more. But that's okay. We have a duty of care to our students. We have a duty of care to our community. I know, sorry. I'm being cut off because it's like, Robin, you have to shut up because we've got to move on. But we do. We have a duty of care in higher ed. I take it seriously, and I think that that's important, and I think it's worth fighting for. But yeah, you're going to have to fight. All right. Well, hey, I have one more slide. Woo! Questions? Email me, tweet me, beer me later. And thank you.